So today we are going to take a sutta which is a little long but has a lot of information. So just absorb how much you can. You may need the booklet which we have given you. Behind the booklet there is a dependent origination chart which is there that you can refer to. So this is Majjhima Nikaya 38 Mahatanha Sankhaya Sutta, the greater discourse on the destruction of craving. So there is a misunderstanding which has happened as we had explained about consciousness, and somebody had asked about questions about the universal consciousness, individual consciousness, and all these things. So there is a misunderstanding about consciousness which has come to the person who is known as Sati. He is a son of a fisherman. So that person has some misunderstanding, and how the Buddha goes about explaining and kind of clarifying that misunderstanding. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jetha's Grove, Anatha Pentika's park. Now, on that occasion, a pernicious view had arisen in a student called Sati, son of a fisherman. That means that pernicious view means there is a harmful idea which has come into his mind. And what is that harmful idea? Thus, as I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, it is the same consciousness that runs and wanders through the round of rebirths, not another. So, what he is saying is this is the same consciousness which is there in every kind of life, and this is also experiencing whatever is happening over here in this life. So now what he is doing is he is kind of giving this consciousness a identity. He is making it into a thing which is kind of perpetuating through different lifetimes. So they try and kind of clarify this point with the student. Several students, having heard about this, went to the student Sati and asked him, "Friend Sati, is it true that such a pernicious view has arisen in you?" Exactly so, friends. As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, it is this same consciousness that runs and wanders through the round of rebirths, not another. Then those students desiring to detach him from that pernicious view pressed and questions and cross-questioned him. Thus, friend Sati, do not say so. Do not misrepresent the Blessed One. It is not good to misrepresent the Blessed One. The Blessed One would not speak thus. For in many ways, the Blessed One has established or has stated consciousness to be dependently arisen. So there is a dependence which is required for the consciousness to arise. It is not there in independent, the consciousness. Since without a condition, there is no origination of consciousness. So there is a condition which is required for the consciousness to arise. So then it cannot be that the consciousness is just going around, but there is some other process which is functioning, and consciousness is a part of this process which is there. As he is not able to uh, understand what the other students were explaining to him, they went to the Buddha. When they went to the Buddha said, "Ask him to come to me, and I'll try to explain to him." So Buddha asked the Blessed One, then asked him, "Sati, is it true that the following pernicious view has arisen in you?" Exactly so, Venerable Sir. As I understand the Dhamma taught by the Blessed One, it is this same consciousness that runs and wanders through the round of rebirths, not another. What is that consciousness, Sati? Venerable Sir, it is that which speaks, feels, and experiences here and there the result of good and bad actions. So he's talking about karma in Pali. So he is talking about the actions which is there, and that actions is the one who is experiencing the actions. Thinks it is the consciousness which is experiencing this thing. So he is attaching a self to the consciousness. So now what he is doing is making a consciousness into a self. But does the Buddha say? Misguided man. So the Buddha refers to him as a misguided man. Misguided man is a very kind of harsh critique by the Buddha, because if you are a well-guided man, what happens is you go towards the awakening, you go towards the goal, And if you are misguided, you are going away from the goal. You are not going away towards the awakening. So that is the reason this critique by the Buddha is very harsh. There's a misguided man. To whom have you ever known me to teach the Dhamma in that way? Misguided man. Have I not stated in many ways consciousness to be dependently arisen? Since without a condition there is no origination of consciousness. So this is the same thing which the other monks also had told. But you, misguided man, have misrepresented us by your wrong grasp and injured yourself and stored up much demerit. For this will lead to your harm and suffering for a long time. So, if you are going into a wrong path, then you will have more suffering. So, the Buddha's teaching, when the Buddha is saying is, he is teaching about suffering and going away from the cessation of suffering. So, previously, also, or now, he only teaches the one thing, that is understanding the suffering and the cessation of suffering. That is what. So now, if you are not going into the same path, then you are going into the path of harm. Then the Blessed One addressed the students thus: Students, what do you think? Has this student Sati, son of a fisherman, kindled even a spark of wisdom in the Dhamma and discipline? How could he, Venerable Sir? No, Venerable Sir. When this was said, the student Sati, son of a fisherman, sat silent, dismayed, and shoulders drooping, head down, glum, and without response. Then, knowing this, the Blessed One told him, Misguided man, you will be recognized by your own pernicious view. I shall question the students in this matter. So, even though they were, the Buddha himself explained to him, he was not ready to give up his view. He was sad, but he was not he had no ability to let go of this view. So then that's the reason he said that he will be known for his wrong view for a long time. So even after 2500 years, we are talking about Sati son of fisherman. So that is what he said. But now he wants to make sure his students, other students who are the other bhikkhus who are there, that do they understand correctly? So then he says, I will question you, that are you understanding? And there are some levels to the questioning which are there. One of those levels is that do you understand in the concept? Do you have the experience? Or have you seen and experienced this in a complete manner? So that's the reason there is a levels in the questioning which happens. Then Blessed One addressed the students thus: Students, do you understand the Dhamma taught by me as this student Sati, son of a fisherman, does when he misrepresents us by his wrong grasp and injures himself and stores up much demerit? So he is asking his students, No, Venerable Sir, for in many discourses the Blessed One has stated consciousness to be dependently arisen, since without a condition there is no origination of consciousness. Good students, it is good that you understand the Dhamma taught by me thus. For in many ways I have stated consciousness to be dependently arisen, since without a condition there is no origination of consciousness. But this student Sati, son of a fisherman, misrepresents us by his wrong grasp and injures himself and stores up much dismerit. For this will lead to his harm and suffering for this misguided man for a long time. So now he is asking about the conditionality of consciousness. Students, consciousness is reckoned by a particular condition dependent upon which it arises. So, when we are talking about consciousness, we are talking about what it is dependent on. Okay? When consciousness arises dependent on I and forms, it is reckoned as I consciousness. So when there is I and form, there is I consciousness which arises. When consciousness arises dependent on the ear and sounds, it is called ear consciousness. When it is arising dependent on the nose and odors, it is reckoned as the nose consciousness. When it is consciousness arises dependent on the tongue and flavors, it is reckoned as the tongue consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the body and tangibles, it is reckoned as body consciousness. When consciousness arises dependent on the mind and mind objects, it is reckoned as mind consciousness. Just as a fire reckoned by the particular condition dependent on which it burns. Fire burns dependent on logs is reckoned as log fire. So whatever the fire burns on, we say that that fire is burning on that. So if there are some wood is burning, then what we'll say it is wood fire. If there is some grass which is burning, then we'll say it's a grass fire. If there is say books are burning, then we say it's a book fire. It's a house is burning, and say it's a house fire. So the fire remains the same, but why we recognize it by what it is dependent on. So he gives a certain examples like log fire. There is also faggots. Faggots are a bunch of sticks which is kind of held together with a string. So that has a different fire than the log fire which is there. Then he gives a example of grass. He gives an example of cow dung. He gives an example of rubbish, and he gives an example of chaff. That is when we clear the grains, the remaining which is there. So whatever this is burning on, you name that fire by that particular. So when fire burns dependent on rubbish, it is reckoned as rubbish fire. So too, consciousness reckoned by the particular condition dependent on which it arises. When consciousness arises dependent on the I and forms, it is reckoned as I consciousness. When it is arising with the ear consciousness. It is arising with the nose consciousness. With the tongue consciousness. With the body consciousness. With the mind consciousness. General questionnaire on being. Students, do you see this has come to be? Yes, Venerable Sir. So first thing he asks, do you see this? This has come to be. Do you understand what I'm telling you? So they say, yes, Venerable Sir. Students, does a doubt arise when one is uncertain thus? Has this come to be? So, if one is not sure, is it natural for the doubt to arise? Then say yes, it is natural that if one is not sure, then the doubt will arise. So, when if one is not sure, the doubt will arise. Students, is doubt abandoned in one who sees it as it actually is with proper wisdom? So, if you see this with proper wisdom, is that you see this in meditation. Okay, you see your attention is there on your object of meditation, and then it moves to the distraction. Then you release it, or you see the sound come, and then when the sound comes, there is a thought which comes up. Why are they kind of making so much sound? So then you know that there is a sound is there, and then there is a something which is happening. Sometimes when you are very in a very quiet place, when the sound comes, you see a vibration happen or something happens. So you know that the sound is there and then this is there. So you are seeing it with wisdom. Students, are you thus free from doubt here? This has come to be. So now this is another level is when you have seen this enough times, then there is no doubt which is there in your mind. So they are without doubt. They say, yes, we have seen this happen and we don't have any doubt in it. Student, has it been seen well by you as it actually is with proper wisdom thus? This has come to be. So they, yes, Venerable Sir. So now this is another level, which is a level where they are very sure that they have seen this, what is happening in the meditation. So this can be seen in meditation and you can be very sure about what is happening in that process of listening. So, or observing, you can come to know. Student, has it been seen well by you as it actually is with proper wisdom thus? Its origin comes with that as nutriment. So it origin comes as that as nutriment. That as nutriment means the I consciousness comes with the nutriment of the object. If the object is there and you see that object, then the I consciousness is coming. There is a contact which happens. The meeting of the three is contact. So that is the nutriment we are talking about. So we talk about the food. So when the thought comes up in our mind and we give our attention, what are we giving then? Uh, so we are giving that mind consciousness our nutriment, our attention. When we give attention, we give nutriment to it. So that is how the nutriment is very important. When you understand the concept in nutriment itself, the Buddha says that you can go till the level of Nibbana. So the nutriment is a very important concept which is there. You can understand. Nutriment, yeah, just like food. Nutriment. With the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation. So if you, this eye consciousness has come because of the eye and the object. But if I close my eye, is the eye consciousness possible now? No, because my eye is closed, the nutriment has been closed, then the eye consciousness does not come to be. So there is a food required for it. And without that food, the consciousness does not sustain itself. So that is important. Student, purified and bright as this view is, if you adhere to it, cherish it, treasure it, and treat it as possession, would you then understand the Dhamma as has been taught as a similar to a raft, being for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping. Yesterday, somebody mentioned the raft. So the Buddha is saying if you kind of just kind of worship this teaching, okay, not use it practically, but just worship it and keep it on your head and you kind of cherish it. Will you be able to use it as a raft to cross over? So they say no, Venerable Sir. Why no? Because when you are kind of making it into a kind of a object of veneration, object of cherishing, object of worship, then what happens is you are not using it. It is a means to an end, the Buddha is saying. That the Dhamma is to be seen as a raft, a means to an end. You have to use the Dhamma to go to the other end. This end, if you have dukkha, there is suffering and danger is there, then you go and use the raft to go to the safe place, which is on the other shore. And you use it to a safe, go to a safe place and be in the safety of that place. But don't use this as a thing to kind of venerate and cherish, but you have to use it. Students, purified and bright as this view is, if you do not adhere to it, cherish it, treasure it, treat it as a possession, would you then understand that the Dhamma has been taught as similar to a raft, being for the purpose of crossing over, not for the purpose of grasping? Yes, Venerable Sir. So if you understand it as a tool, as a means to an end, then you can use it to reach the safety which is there. So that is what the Buddha is talking about. Nutriment and dependent origination. Student, there are these four kinds of nutriment for the maintenance of being that already have come to be and for the support of those about to come to be. So there are this four kind of food which is available. Now these are available for us and some are available for some beings who have not just got the in our position. So there are beings which are in another realms of beings also, and they are this food are for everybody. There are physical food as nutriment, gross or subtle. So what we have is the gross food. We have the rice and roti and sabji and all those things which we have this food as nutriment. Then there is subtle food which is there. Subtle food is there for the devas. So for the earthworm devas and there are different deva lokas, there are their food would be a subtle food. So those are the subtle food which are there. That is the physical food. Contact as a second. So when we talked about the eye object and the eye consciousness meeting of the three, that is contact. That contact can be a food. That contact can be a food for thoughts. Contact can be a food for feelings. Contact can be a food for ideas and all those things. So contact can be the food. Then there is mental volition as the third. Mental volition is our decision making power, our choosing. So when we are seeing ourselves distracted, what we can do is we can release, relax, re-smile, come back. So that is our mental volition. That is also feeds us. And consciousness as a force. So consciousness can be also a feeding, and this feeding can be of in certain subtle areas. It can feed the life form to have. So those are the kinds of food which are there. Now, students, these four kinds of nutriment have what as their source, what as their origin. Now we are going to dependent origination cycle. So now we have to have this chart ready with you. On the last page, the chart is there. So the Buddha is talking that there has something which is there supporting this thing also, the food, the nutriment. What is supporting the nutriment? Uh, so now students, these four kinds of nutriment have what as their source, what as their origin. from what are they born and produce? These four kinds of nutriments have craving as their source, craving as their origin. They are born and produced from craving. So we need craving to have those things produced. The nutriment to sustain life are the basis of it is craving. So that is wanting. Because of the wanting, these things come into being. And this craving has what as its source? Craving has feeling as its source. So you can see there, you will see that there is a craving which is there, and behind that there is feeling. Okay, so you can see on your booklets, and you have to follow this. So there will be a lot of repetition. I'll reduce a little bit of repetition, but you follow this chart from the start to the end. Craving has feeling as its source, and this feeling has what as its source? Feeling has contact as its source, and this contact has what as its source? Contact has sixfold base as its source, and this sixfold base has what as its source? The sixfold base has mentality materiality as its source. So now what happens is we are going in the backward thing. So now we have seen that what has happened is when there is an eye and then there is an eye object, and there is a eye consciousness, there is contact. Based on that contact, there is a feeling coming up. But the eye and this eye, ear, nose, mouth, and the body, how does that come into being? That has mentality materiality. So this goes into the potentiality which is there. So over there, you will see that the charts are also mentioned in different colors. Okay. So that is mentality, materiality, source. And this mentality, materiality has what as its source? Mentality, materiality has consciousness as its source. So now this consciousness and mentality, materiality also has a interdependent relationship. So for the consciousness to be there, there should be mentality, materiality, and for the mentality, materiality to be there, there should be consciousness. So they are interdependent. So many of those concepts are interdependent in the Buddha's teaching. So these two are interdependent. And this consciousness has what as its source? Consciousness has formations as its source. Formations are the bodily formations, verbal formations, and kind of the mental formations which are there. So, mind, speech, and action which we do. Those are the potentialities. Those are the things which are coming together for action. Those are the things which help you kind of do the actions which are there. So that is the potentiality. That is also a potential which is there, which is created. And what has this formation as their source? Origin, from what are they born and produced? Formations have ignorance as their source, ignorance as their origin. They are born and produced from ignorance. So what is happening is that when we don't know, that is what is called ignorance. What do we don't know? We don't know the four noble truths. That is the truth of the dukkha. It does not mean that everything is dukkha. It means that there is dukkha. The truth of the origin of dukkha. So how does the dukkha originate? Because of the craving. Truth of the cessation of dukkha, which is the giving up of this craving will cease the dukkha. And the fourth is the way leading to the cessation of the dukkha. That is the eightfold path. So when we don't know this, we don't know the three characteristics, which is the impermanence is there, the dukkha is there, or the resistance which is there, and the impersonality, and the process of dependent origination. When we don't know this, which is called ignorance. So when we don't know certain things, we do certain acts. When we do certain acts, we are responsible for that acts. And when we are responsible for the acts, what happens is we get into trouble in that sense that we have to bear the fruits of that, good or bad. If there is good actions, we get good fruits. We have bad actions, we have bad fruits. So we are getting into this cycle of good and bad because of we are not knowing the truth. And when we know the truth, what will happen is this cycle will change, and this will become this process will not happen. So this is a forward exposition on arising. So he is going through this whole process of how this dependent origination cycle is happening. So students, with ignorance as conditions, formations come to be. With formations as condition, you have to read out from this. Huh? No, this is we are formations as conditions. Consciousness, sorry, consciousness comes to be. With consciousness as condition, materiality. With materiality as condition, six sense doors. With six sense doors as condition, with contact as condition, with feeling as condition, with craving as condition, with clinging as condition, habitual condition. So now what happens is when there is a feeling, this feeling is painful or pleasant or neither painful nor neither pleasant. Okay, and then there is a craving which happens. Craving is what? I like it, I don't like it. You can see below that it is written I like it, I don't like it. When there is a I like it or I don't like it, there is which is clinging happens. Clinging is all the justifications which is there, all why I like it, why I don't like it. If you see a ice cream, you say I like this ice cream because it is good to have ice cream. It is sweet. It is, we need energy. Or after dinner, we need to have kind of a palate cleanser or something like that. Some justification we make for that ice cream. Okay, and then what happens is a habitual tendency. Whenever we think about ice cream, what we do? We go to say Baskin and Robbins. Huh? So that is how the habitual tendency is there. That habitual tendency comes to be. With habitual tendency as condition, birth of action. So you go there and purchase it. That's a birth of action. You now have the ice cream. Now with birth as action as condition, aging at death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair come to be. Such is the origination of this whole mass of suffering. So when then we start having ice cream, what happens? Ice cream is finished. That is the death of the ice cream. So that is how the whole thing happens. So the Buddha is explaining it in one other way, that we have to understand certain things. One other way the Buddha is explaining it is you have to understand the appearance and the disappearance, okay, the arising and the disappearance, the gratification, the danger and the escape. So one other way the Buddha is explaining is how some things kind of arise, how they disappear. What is the gratification? In the ice cream case, the gratification is the how you feel nice about the ice cream. Huh? It is very nice tasting, the flavor is there. But what is the danger in that? It is impermanent. So it is get finished. Whatever best ice cream, costliest ice cream you take, the one factor is it gets completed. Now that is the danger in it. And what is the escape? The escape is knowing the eightfold path, or you can say 6R. When we have the thought of ice cream, we can 6R it, and then you don't have to suffer with the finishing of ice cream. Once as I explained, Bante Vimal Vamsi had a thought of having cheesecake. So my teacher was a lay person that time. He took a car, he went many kilometers, and then when he went to the shop, he found the shop closed. So he came back again without the cheesecake. And he said, just this thought, one thought which came to me that I want to have cheesecake made me go for a 20-kilometer trip. So that is what happens with our mind. We are not seeing the danger in things when something arises. So that is how you understand this whole mass of suffering. So now again the Buddha is talking about the and kind of reconfirming this whole process. With birth as condition, aging and death. So it was said. Now students, do you do aging and death have birth as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case? Aging and death have birth as condition universal. Thus, we take it in this case. So now he goes into the reverse order. So now he says that for the death there is a birth required. Okay, if there is nobody born, they die? No. So now we know that he said yes. Then he says for the birth to happen there is a habitual tendency is there. If there is a habitual tendency, then there is a birth which is there. So they say yes, that is correct. Now he goes to, if why is this habitual tendency happening? Because there is a clinging which is happening. There is always justification which is happening. Because of this justification, this habitual tendency happening. But why is this justification happening? Because I like it and don't like it. That is the craving is happening. When there is craving happening, that is the reason the clinging is happening. So why is this craving happening in the first place? Because there is a feeling which is arising. The feeling arising which is painful or pleasurable or neither painful nor pleasurable, and then you latch onto I like it or I don't like it. Now, why is the feeling happening itself? Feeling is happening because there is contact. But why is the contact happening? Because there are the sense bases are there. Because sense bases are there, that is the reason the contact is happening. But why is the sense basis there? Because there is mentality, materiality is there. There is a mind and body. There is not separate. There is no one mind and body. There is mind body. That mind body things happen. Why? Because there is consciousness is there. And why is this consciousness there? Because there is sankhara. Sankhara is also called formations. So, and formations are there are called preparations also. This is a place where things come together. Okay. So one of the things I tell is about a pen. So I don't have a pen, but maybe I can use a mobile. Okay, give me a pen. So one way of understanding is to understand this formations. You can understand this. So I ask sometimes in the class that touch the pen, come and touch the pen. Nobody has been able to touch the pen. I ask every time I ask touch the pen, but nobody is able to touch the pen. Because if they touch over here, then I say, okay, this is the top part of the pen. Okay, if they touch over here, this is the bottom part of the pen. If they touch here, this is just a cylinder. If they touch here, this is just a nib. Where is the pen? In this, where is the pen? So it is coming together of all these things makes the pen. Okay, all these things are coming together, and now this pen has been made. Now this is a formation. So we sometimes explain about the car also, that what is a car. So, certain times this is a concept which is there, a car. Certain people say it's a truck, and we say it is a SUV or something like that. We say sedan or something like that. Those are just same things are there. Like they took some people from Africa, okay, and they kind of were examining their ability to see brown color. They are so good at identifying different shades of brown that they can find out the minute this kind of change in color, because the cows which are there, these are the tribesmen in this thing Africa. Because if the cow's color changes from a slight brown to a say, little darker brown, they know that the cow is sick, and then they can tend to the cow, then they can give them the herbs or medicine or something like that. So their ability to kind of distinguish in brown was very exact, very kind of advanced. So what they did was they just took them to London for certain experimentation. So they were in London over there. They could not distinguish between a car and a bus. London has a double decker bus. So if they had to distinguish between a bus and a car, they did not have that ability. But they could distinguish between a minor shades of brown, because that distinction was important for them. And these are the concept which was not there. So for them, everything is a car because it has wheel, it has something, somebody driving it, it has a structure, somebody is sitting in it. So the bus also has the same thing, and the car also has the same thing. So that is how our perceptions work, and how this coming together of things, and then these things which are there, which are you can take, which are the formations happens. And why does the formations happen? Because of ignorance. Because there is ignorance, but there is a reason for ignorance also. I will go through that some other time. This is itself a long kind of sutta. So, for the ignorance, we'll go to the what is the kind of causes and conditions of ignorance. We'll go to one of those days we have time. We'll go through that. So, the Buddha is talking about formations. Okay, With ignorance as condition formation. So it was said. Now students, do formations have ignorance as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case? Formations have ignorance as condition when sir. Thus we take it in this case with ignorance as condition formations. Then recapitulation of arising. Good students. So you say thus and I also say thus. When this exists, that comes to be. So the Buddha is talking about in the formula, like an algorithm. No? So so when this exists, that comes to be. So he started when this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this arises. So he is saying this is dependent. So they are dependent like two reeds of grass which are there put on support of one another. So that is how they are dependent on one other thing they are dependent on. So that is how that is there. That is with ignorance as conditions, formations comes to be. With formations as conditions, consciousness. And that is how it goes to till the end. So with formations as conditions, consciousness, consciousness as condition, mentality, materiality. With mentality, materiality as condition, six-fold base. When six-fold base is there, there is a contact possible. When the contact is there, feeling. Feeling is there, craving. Craving is there is clinging. Clinging is there, habitual tendencies. Habitual tendencies is there, birth of action. Birth of action is there, then what happens is aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair come to be. This is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. So, whole of this suffering happens because we don't understand the functioning of the mind. How does mind attention go from one thing to another? There is a craving which is there, which the thought brings up. And when the thought bring up the craving, we go towards that. We say, oh, we have to think about the office because office that is very important. You know that client is very important. Or oh, maybe I have to think about my house because house. But house they are taking care of themselves. Office they are taking care of themselves. But our craving is that that's the reason we engage in it, and we are not able to actively do anything from here. But we have the craving. That's the reason it goes, and that is the process we have to understand. That is the process of the mind, how it is working. That is the dependently originated process. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes the cessation of formations. So now the Buddha is talking about the forward exposition of cessation. So now the Buddha is saying where we do 6 hours in essence. If ignorance is going, then what happens? Formations does not come to be. When the formations is not there, consciousness does not come to be. When the consciousness is not there, then the mentality materiality does not come to be. When the mentality materiality is not there, then what happens is the sixfold base is not there. When the sixfold base is not there, contact is not there. When the contact is not there, then the feeling is not there. When the feeling is not there, the craving is not there. When the craving is not there, then the habitual, the clinging which is there is not there. When the clinging is not there, habitual tendency is not there. When the habitual tendency is not there, birth of action is not there. When the birth of action is not there, then the aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair is not there. So when we have knowledge, then it ends the suffering. So we start with knowing. How do we know? We know in our
And just to say that eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness is not the same consciousness. Eye consciousness only arises when the eye and the object are there. Nose consciousness only appears when the nose and the odor is there. And so we think there's a continuity of consciousness, but when we actually observe this, we see that these are separate things. Consciousness is not one thing, it's dependent on what creates it. So we have the illusion of this continuity, but in reality, they only appear when the conditions are there and when they disappear. So in the cessation, the perception of feeling, the consciousness also disappears, and this is, if you like, the verification that consciousness is dependently arisen.
So this process, the entire process of this manner, is it mainly because of our mind consciousness? Because other things are like physical domain, we need that consciousness to go about the daily thing. But the rest of the process, whether you tend to lean towards materiality and feeling and what you later on the sufferings, it is only because of your mind being conscious, the conditions created for
It's because the mind is conscious that we see the other consciousness of the senses. Well, what we need to remember is that, see that when the eye and the object and the eye consciousness come together, that's what creates contact. And then contact creates feeling. And feeling is part of mentality, is part of the mind. Yeah? And then the naming of what it is that we see, that's perception, that's part of mind. So what's happened is you've had the eye consciousness arise, and that's caused then the mind consciousness to arise, because the feeling is there, and the contact is. But the feeling and contact, that mind consciousness was dependent upon the eye consciousness being there. If the eye consciousness hadn't been there, the mind consciousness wouldn't have been there. So what we see is that all of these different consciousnesses, they're completely dependent upon each other. They're not constant. The fact that this Bhante says that the mind consciousness is the CPU, is the processing unit of the other senses, doesn't mean it's there all the time.
Yes.
It's dependent upon the ear consciousness being there, creating the feeling, creating the contact, creating the feeling, and then creating the perception.
Interdependent? The feeling
So that you can think of those as interdependent. Yes. Yes, yeah, because in order to register the eye consciousness, the mind consciousness needs to have arisen. Okay? But they're not continuous.
Continuously, correct.
Okay?
We'll just try and complete this process. There are two processes. This is the forward. Forward processes happen with the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and disease, and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. So when there is no ignorance, total ignorance is gone, then total suffering is also removed. Reverse order of questionnaire. With the cessation of birth, cessation of aging and death, so it was said. Now, students, do aging and death cease with the cessation of birth or not? Or how do you take it in this case? Aging and death cease with the cessation of birth, Venerable Sir. Thus, we take it in this case. With the cessation of birth, cessation of aging and death. So, this is a reverse question where the Buddha is asking if this is not there, this is not also not there. So, if there is no birth, there cannot be a kind of a death which is possible. But if there is no habitual tendency, there is no birth which is possible. But if there is no kind of the clinging, then there is no habitual tendency possible. So we can look at it 6 hours also, that wherever we are 6 houring, the next things are not coming up. So we can 6 hour at the clinging stage and then habitual tendencies will not happen. We can 6 hour at the craving stage and the clinging will not happen. We can 6 hour at feeling and then what will happen is that the craving will not happen. If we 6 hour at contact, then the feeling is not happening. If we kind of the mentality, the six sense bases are not there, then there is no contact possible. When there is no mentality materiality, there is no six sense basis. When there is no consciousness, there is no mentality materiality. When there is no the formations, then there is no consciousness possible. When there is no ignorance, then there is no formations possible. So that is how this works in the reverse order. That is reverse order of thing. Good students. So you say this, and I also say thus. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. When means this does not exist, that does not come to be. So it's talking about again the formula that which is like a algorithm. When he said this is not there, this will not come into being. With the cessation of this, that ceases. When this is ceasing, then that is also ceasing. So when we are 6 houring at the clinging, then the habitual tendency also is ceasing. So it is not coming up. That is, with the cessation of ignorance comes the cessation of formation. That is the whole. So now the Buddha is talking about the what is this mind who understands this whole process of dependent origination. How is this mind? How does it look like? How does it see? What does it seek? What does it not seek? What is this mind like who those understand completely the dependent origination? His students which are there were completely understanding this process. So he cross-questioned him very much about each questions he asked. So what he is asking is, what is it that this mind is looks like? So he's giving us a glimpse into that. Students, knowing and seeing in this way, would you run back in the past thus? Were we in the past? Were we not in the past? So, would you run into the past if you know what is happening in the present very clearly? Will you run into the past? That saying that were we in the past? Were we not in the past? What were we in the past? How were we in the past? Having been what? What did we become in the past? So, all the questions of the past: what happened to us? What were we? How did we become? And how did it all change? No venerable sir. So they will not go in the past. Why? Because in the present they know what is the reality. Because in the present they are seeing what is arising and passing away. They are very clear about what is happening in the present. So in the past, what has happened? What is happening in the present? That is the same thing has happened in the past. So they don't go in the past. So they don't go, what was I in the past? Where was I in the past? What were we in the past? How were we in the past? Having been what? What did we become in the past? So that is a no vendor. So we don't want to know about that. We don't want to know about the past. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you run forward in the future? Thus, shall we be in the future? Shall we not be in the future? What shall we be in the future? How shall we be in the future? Having been what? What shall we become in the future? So you have no curiosity about the future. What will become of us? How will we arise? All these things are also not there.
Bhante, can you just explain a little bit more why seeing dependent origination makes us not caught up in the past or caught up in the future?
So one of the things which I have been explaining also today, also to a few things, that see, when we know what is happening in the present, depending, we know what has happened in the past. We know that what is happening in the present is dependent on the past, what is arising. So when we what arises in the present, we can let it go. Then we are independent of the past for the future. If we are accepting whatever is arising in the present, what our future will look like is like the past, because we are arising something, we are taking it personally, and we are reacting in the same way. So our future will look as the past. So when we see everything what is there in the present as it is with the reality, then what happens is we know that whatever is going to arise in the future also will be the same thing. So we will not be afraid of the future also. We will not have curiosity over it, because we know that we will always stay in the present. We cannot, can we exist in the past? So that is the same way we cannot exist in the future. So both ways, we know when we are in the present, we will always be in the present, and we know what is happening in the present. So we don't have any curiosity about the future, because we know every time we will be in the present.
And also, because we're seeing the present very clearly, we see it's dependently arisen. Because we see it's dependently arisen, we see it's impersonal. So then we realize, rather than our past image of or our past view of the past, or as if we were something in the past, and we were like this, and we were like that, we realize with our experience of the present, that things were dependently arisen. They were dependently arisen in the past as well. And so we were not in the past. We don't have the same ownership or identity of things of the past. We recognize that they were dependently arisen as well. And then when we have this preoccupation of how will I be in the future, what will I be in the future, who will I be in the future, how will I be in the future, when we realize that the present is dependently arisen, we realize that the future will be dependently arisen. And therefore we don't have that same identity of what things will be in the future. They will be just like they are now, dependently arisen. So now we're beginning to become dependent on the past. Yeah? We don't have that same continuity of things. We're dealing with things as they are. Think of yourself. You know you're the same person. some capacity as you were 10 years ago. Because there's a continuity of evolution. Let's think about how you think of yourself now, how you react, how you respond to changes in your life. Are you the same person as you were last time? Before? Or did you have different ways of responding? Were there different habitual tendencies? Were there different aspects? And then we begin to see that how we respond in the present determines who we are. And that determines how we move into the future. If there was always the same person, we would always have these same responses. So, as Banji says, the person we were in the past would be the person we will be in the future. But when we see that these things are dependent and we have choice, then we see that what moves into the future doesn't have to be linked to what was present in the past.
So if we let go of the present, both past and future vanishes.
If we let go of the present, in other words, allow it to be simply itself, then we don't carry forward things from the past.
And also the future.
And then what we create in the future is dependent upon how we are in the present. We're not carrying through the past. So, for instance, if we have a habitual response to some stimulus, and some of you described in your interviews, for instance, it's difficult to let go of a strong emotion based on the circumstances of the past. So whenever it comes up, the same emotion is there. Well, if that's allowed to persist, then in the future, the same emotion will be there. But if you can allow, as you see that stimulus come in, and you now choose to hold the space around that, not to allow the individual to go forward, but simply to be with it, to let go, to take it in personally, then what is your experience going for? It's not the experience of the past, it's something different. Alright? So think of two people being in the same traumatic situation, or potentially traumatic situation. One might suffer from PTSD, the other one might not. What's the difference between them? It's still, there's an interesting psychologist called Gamal Matin, and he has a very interesting phrase which I find very useful. He says, trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside you. And because of that, he says, this is how you can recognize the process that's going on. Two people have a different thing going on inside them. One of them is taking it personally and it becomes something that feels personally threatening, or and they feel an intense loss of control under a certain circumstance, and that can be very traumatic. For another person, they don't experience the same thing. So the two people do not experience the same trauma, even though they're exposed to the same stimulus.
And some of our students also come and say that, oh, this is happening again and again to me, or people betray me, or something like that. So that is what he's talking about. This happens again and again because we are not able to see, and that occasion that there is something we can 6 hour over here. Then we kind of act by that thing, and then that your future looks like your past. And regarding this present also is a very interesting thing the Buddha is talking about. So it's that is also kind of very interesting. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you now inwardly be perplexed? Means have doubt about it, about the present thus. Am I? Am I not? What am I? Who am I? Where has this being come from? Where will it go? No vandalism. So you will not have any kind of doubts in the present also. Now also there may be a lot of doubts which is there in the present which are similar to this, and that is very real, which I'll read once again. Am I? Am I not? See, am I or am I not maybe sounding a little bit kind of funny, but you see that all these concepts about we living in a simulation, we living in a computer game of some higher kind of beings and all these things. So that is what the doubt is. Then am I or am I not? If I am a character in a simulation game of a some higher being, then am I or am I not? That is a valid question. But the Buddha is saying that you can know about this. When you see this dependent origination, you see how this is happening in the present, then you can have no doubt about you are there or you are not there. What am I? Who am I? Where has this being come from? So you are not worried about where it has come from. You are worried about what is happening in the present. Over here, what is happening? Where will it go? You are not worried about where it goes because you know what is happening over here is I'm always in the present and that. And one other thing about that cycle also. Cycle happens because we are chasing those things, the concepts which are there, we are creating. When we are creating those concepts and those kind of concepts we are holding on to. Buddha says that don't hold on to the concepts. When you hold on to the concept, we are not ready to move. Like the Sati is the son of a fisherman, he is holding on to the concept. He is not ready to kind of give it up. But we have to keep the concepts like this in our palm of our hands. When we keep our concepts in the palm of our hands, we give it space to change. And that space to change is what will help you kind of go with your experience, go with your knowledge, go with your developed understanding. So if sometimes it is like this, sometimes it is like this. So you change and you be true to what your experience is there rather than being true to your concepts and ideas, and that helps. One other thing about self is that one book I would recommend is there is Selves and Not Selves by Tanisaru Bhikkhu, Ajahn Jeff. You can Google him. He's a very kind of famous monk in. He is from a forest tradition in Thailand, but he's an American. He has a monastery in America. You can download his book. Now, one of the things, huh? Ajahn Jeff, Tanisaru Bhikkhu, and it is self and not selves, something like that. The book is selves and not selves. So selves and not selves. So he is talking about multiple selves. Like he says that when you get up, you are a different self. If you are groggy and you need to kind of find your way, and somebody comes and asks you something to do, that time you will not agree with it. Then you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, you wash your, you are a little bit awake. You are a different self now. Now you go have coffee. When you have coffee, you are a different self, or coffee or tea, whatever is your preference. Now you are a different self. But that same thing, somebody comes and tells you, you may be more agreeable to that thing. You have breakfast, you are a different self. You go through the traffic, you are a different self. You come to the office, you are a different self. You end the office day, you are a different self. When you are coming back in the traffic, back to home, you are a different self. So they say that when you do bail application just before lunch, there is more chance of your bail application being rejected, and more chances after lunch. When the judge has had a good meal, more chance that he will approve your bail applications. So all of these are different selves. So the self which was before that, the same judge becomes more lenient after having food. So that is, we are such a changing kind of person. So we have this concept that I, but that I is changing throughout the day, and we can observe it. If we are more, because that is what is arising in passing. We are believing the concept which are there. How do we get up from our meditation? We have a thought, oh, I have enough meditation. I will now walk. That one thought will kind of push you away from your meditation. You believe this concept of had enough. Oh, this is uncomfortable. I'll get up. So those thoughts is when we are taking it personally, then it personally moves us. When somebody has a thought, oh, I have to go to North Pole. So then he kind of ends up in the end of the earth in North Pole. Because of this one thought we had, one concept we had. So that is how we get moved, and that is the reason. So once I was going on a Pindapata in Thailand, and we had to cross a road, and this monk was there with me. He was from a kind of some Scandinavian country. He was seeing this traffic, and we were there for a while. 1 or 2 minutes we were there. See, these people who are going over here think that they will find happiness over there. And then there are people going over here, they think they will find happiness over there. Why can't they do this over there, wherever there? So the traffic is going both the ways. So some people think that is a better place to be, and some people are thinking this is a better place to be. That is a kind of joke he made, but that is what we are actually. So we will just finish this up. So students, knowing and seeing in this way, would you speak thus? The teacher is respected by us. We speak as we do out of respect for the teacher. So no, venerable sir. So they are not speaking because of the respect of the teacher. Teacher means the Buddha. They are doing it because they know and see in the present. They have experience. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you speak thus? The recluse says this, and we speak thus at the bidding of the recluse. So I said, no. Because we know and see, that's the reason we speak. Are not saying because Buddha is saying, asking us to say this. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you acknowledge another teacher? No, venerable sir. We don't acknowledge another teacher because we consider ourselves our teachers. Okay, Bante used to say this statement means that we are our own teachers. So we learn from our own experience. Okay, we are the guides. We can guide you. The Buddha is also a guide. He can also only give you the instructions. Yesterday, as Hugh was reading the sutta about Moglana, Ganaka Moglana, and he asked about the address. So what happened is Buddha said, I can just guide. It is up to you. So this is saying no, we will not acknowledge another teacher because you will consider yourself yours as teachers. You will teach yourself by seeing what is happening in your own mind. That is how you learn. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you return to the observances, tumultuous debates, auspicious signs, and ordinary recluses and Brahmin, taking them as core of holy life? So we will not go into debates. Why we don't need to have debates? Because we can see the truth in ourselves. Okay, so we see the what is arising in our mind and what is passing away. We can see that we are holding on to something and we are letting go of something. So we don't have to debate somebody about what is the reality. We don't have to kind of have a debate about reality. What we can do is we can go into meditation and see our reality for ourselves. So each person will have to go through this process of learning. No, venerable sir. Do you speak only of what you have known, seen, understood for yourself? What is the answer for that? Yes, venerable sir. So you only speak about what you have known, seen, and understood for yourself. So it is about each person's individual reality, individual truth. It is not about a committee decision. It is about the reality each person experiences. Good students. So you have been guided by me with this Dhamma, which is visible here and now. Why is it visible here and now? You can 6 hours here and now. So you can see it visible now. Immediately effective. Immediately effective, why? Because when you 6 hours, you let go of the hindrance immediately. So it is immediately effective. You can see the mind has unwholesome or wholesome. If it is unwholesome, you can 6 hours. So that is immediately effective. You don't need any time for that. Inviting inspection. So we have to invite somebody to inspect. It is inviting inspection. You cannot see what is happening. So inviting inspection. Onward leading. Onward leading because it will take you forward in your understanding. Your understanding as it goes ahead. So it is onward leading. That is the teaching of the Buddha. To be experienced by the wise for themselves. So the wise is everybody is a wise person who knows about dependent origination, who knows about the Four Noble Truths, who knows about the three characteristics. He is a wise person. So you have to know for yourself. So there is nobody who can give it to you. There is no kind of passing on the knowledge. There is no USB stick I can give you to use to kind of insert the knowledge. That is not there. So you have to know for yourself. For it was with reference to this that has been said, students, that Dhamma is visible here and now, immediately effective, inviting inspection, onward leading to be experienced by the wise for themselves. Now, the Buddha is talking about how there are differences between the Buddha era and when the Buddha is not there. So, I'm not reading the whole thing, it is a longer, it will take a lot of time. So the Buddha is talking about a time when a child is born. Okay, so when the child is born, what happens is he has senses. So when he is a small kid, he has small toys. Okay, he has a toy cart, toy kind of bullock, toy kind of scales, toy all those things which he has. He plays with this. What is he playing is his senses. So he has something colorful, something which makes sound, something which smells, something which tastes, something which he can touch. Okay, all those things which are there, he is playing with that. So those are the things which a child plays. When he gets a little older and he becomes young and adult, then he plays with all these things, but the mature things are there. Other things are coming up. So what happens is when something is good, he is happy. Something is bad, he becomes sad. Something is good, he tries to hold on to it. Something it is bad, he tries to push away. So he is going through this cycle of good and bad moods. Sometimes he's happy, sometimes he's sad, sometimes he's bored. So all these things is happening to him. Now the Buddha comes up. Buddha has to make a lot of effort to become a Buddha. Sometimes they say it takes two kind of asankhya. The asankhya we talked about the Big Bang. So one fourth of the Big Bang. So two Big Bangs maybe he has to work to kind of gain the knowledge. 100,000 lifetimes or million lifetimes he has to do. A lot of work he does, and then he comes, and then he gives us the process. The main thing the Buddha says is be mindful and fully aware. Okay, so mindfulness of the body, the Buddha is talking over here. So when you are talking about the mindfulness, then he says, and then he learns about what is to be accepted, what is to be rejected. Six are what they can be six are and what cannot be six are. Then he gains his understanding. When he gains his understanding, he gives up on pleasure and pain, and he dwells in equanimity. Only when you are doing meditation, you can come in equanimity. When you are in equanimity, your understanding grows. And as his understanding grows, he gets away from this cycle of pain and pleasure, up and down, happiness and sadness. All these cycles he kind of ends. So that is how the coming of the Buddha helps us to progress in our life. In the end, the Buddha says is, students, remember this discourse of mine briefly. Briefly, this is a small brief kind of discourse. There are many discourses which are bigger also. So certain times Buddha used to talk the whole night. He used to give this. So, but this is a brief discourse. As deliverance in the destruction of craving. But remember the student Sati, son of a fisherman, as caught up in a vast net of craving, in a turmoil of craving. That is what the Blessed One said. The students were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's word. So the Buddha is talking about how we can get into the net, how we can get caught into the trap. So we should not get trapped into our own making. So one of the things Osho said once was that there was a person who was saying that kind of there was a parrot which was there which was saying release me, I am trapped, release me, I am trapped. So this guy was a traveler and he came and told the hotel owner that this parrot is always kind of crying, release me, I want freedom, release me. So he said, don't worry about it, you do your own work, this is my parrot, don't worry about him. So then this guy is very kind of kind-hearted. He said, I am a kind-hearted God, how can I let it go? So then he goes to sleep and he cannot sleep. The parrot is saying, release me, I want freedom, release me, I want freedom. So I said, "Okay, what can I do now? I cannot just stand by the suffering of this parrot, and the owner will be angry. But he goes in the middle of the night, releases the parrot, and the parrot flies away. Then in the morning, when it is morning, he hears the sound, release me, I want freedom, release me, I want freedom. Then he goes and sees the parrot is back in the cage and eating the food. and the cage door is open. He said, "What happened?" When he again goes to kind of remove the parrot is fighting with him, and he's biting him and not allowing him to kind of take him out of the cage. But he still keeps on saying, release me, I want freedom." So the thing is that our cage which we are making is of our own making. That is about taking it personally. We take all this concepts which are there personally, we are taking all these ideas which are there personally, and then this is the reason we are not able to fix our them. We are not able to release. And when we are in charge of us, our own release. So there is no kind of cage in that sense. That's what a story. The Osho was very good with stories. I used to listen to him Osho when I was a kid, and my father used to get the cassettes posted by this thing, Indian Post. The cassette would come in post, and then he would send the cassette back, and then there would be another cassette would come. That is a download speed of 14 days. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearlessly. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu.